There is a boardwalk in central South Carolina where the handrail sits at your hip and the water below it is still and tea-colored. Families walk the loop in sandals. Everyone who comes here has quietly agreed on the same thing. The dangerous animal is the alligator, and the alligator is in the creek. The animals never agreed to it. This countdown ranks each creature by how suddenly contact begins, how serious the result becomes, and how much control professionals need when distance collapses. Keep your number one guess until the end, because the animal that triggered the strongest response is not the one waiting in the creek. Number 9 begins beside the water, where a mistake in identification can happen faster than a person can pull back. Number 9, banded water snake. Every heavy-bodied snake near dark water in the south ends up with the same name. Someone sees a thick body draped along a low branch over Cedar Creek, calls it a cottonmouth, and walks away with a story. Most of the time, they were looking at a banded water snake confirmed inside Congaree, carrying no venom whatsoever. The correction sounds like relief. It is where the injury begins. Watch what changes in a person the moment they decide an animal is harmless. The distance goes first. They reach out to move it, or pin it for a photograph, or crowd it against the bank until it has water on one side and a human on the other and nothing in between. A cornered water snake bites quickly and repeatedly. That is the entire strategy, not one defensive strike held in reserve, but a sequence, because repetition is how a small animal without venom purchases its release from something larger. The punctures bleed more than they should, and all of it happens on a wet, undercut slope where losing your balance is the more serious outcome. Number 9 is the harm created by being right about the animal and wrong about yourself. The next contact does not rise from the creek. It arrives above the light. Number 8, barred owl. An owl is a sound long before it is ever a bird. That is how nearly everyone files at a call carrying across the floodplain at dusk, distinct, repeated, and never once located. You hear it, you scan the canopy, you find nothing. Then you keep walking. Barred owls are listed as abundant in Congaree National Park. The structure of their flight feathers breaks up the turbulence that ordinarily produces sound at the trailing edge of a wing. It is an adaptation for hunting, and it works on everything, including you. A bird defending a nest can cross the final stretch of open air above a trail without offering your ears anything to work with. So the contact itself becomes the first available information. Talons across a scalp, a scratch near the temple, or nothing more than the stumble that follows shock on ground that punishes stumbling. 2 qualifications belong here. This is territorial behavior. You are being removed from a space, not selected. And it is uncommon. Most people walking under barred owls here will never experience anything but the call. It is also not something you get to appeal in the moment it happens. Number 8 is the encounter with no approach. The owl crosses open air. Number 7 barely needs to move its body. Number 7, common snapping turtle. There is a moment on a flooded Congaree trail when a common snapping turtle looks like a problem with plenty of time attached to it. Dark, algae-streaked, ridged, crossing between sloughs at the pace of something that has never needed to hurry. The shell says slow. People believe the shell. The neck is the animal. A snapping turtle on land has far less shell to withdraw into than most turtles. Its plastron is reduced, and the soft parts are more exposed than the armor suggests. It compensates with reach. The head extends and closes across a distance almost no one includes in their estimate of the animal's size. And that distance is very often the exact reach of a hand lowering to move it clear of a path. What follows is not a nip. It is a deep laceration through soft tissue, and, depending on where the hand was, through the structures that let fingers work on a trail, where the nearest road is hours behind you and the light is going. In water, the same animal almost always leaves. It is not looking for a confrontation and does not benefit from one. The defense appears when leaving stops being available when the turtle is on land, between habitats, out of options, and something large has just decided to be helpful. Number 7 is the error of measuring an animal by how fast it walks. A snapping turtle announces contact with pain. Number 6 may leave no signal at all. Number 6, ticks. Congaree's official visitor guidance asks people to do something unusual for a park warning. It does not tell you what to avoid. It asks you to check yourself afterward. That instruction contains the whole problem. A tick does not strike, does not charge, and does not need you to make a mistake. It waits on vegetation along the trail margin with its forelegs raised, a posture called questing, reading heat, carbon dioxide, and odor, and it transfers to fabric the instant fabric brushes past. There is no impact to feel. From there it travels, sometimes for an hour, working toward thin skin and warmth. Its saliva is built to keep the rest of the process quiet, so that attachment produces neither pain nor alarm. That is why the park's advice takes the form of a body check rather than a first aid step. It is not telling you how to respond to an event, it is telling you how to discover one. Whether that bite becomes a medical matter depends on the species of tick, the pathogen it happens to carry, and how long it stays attached before it is found and removed correctly. None of that can be assessed at the moment of contact, because there is no moment of contact to assess. You find it later. In a bathroom, in another county, on a different day when the exact place it happened has stopped being obvious. Number 6 is the encounter you carry home. Ticks wait for contact. The next creature comes looking for it. Number 5, mosquitoes. From mid-spring through mid-fall, the National Park Service tells Congaree visitors to bring repellent. It is the most routine line in the park's guidance, and the most reliably ignored, because it sounds like advice about comfort rather than about wildlife. The water is what makes it true. A bottomland hardwood floodplain does what its name promises. It fills, it drains, and it leaves standing water in every low place between the levee and Cedar Creek. Sloughs, guts, oxbows, tire-deep depressions in a service road. That surface is what a great deal of this park's insect life is built around. So set the alligator aside and answer honestly. Of every animal inside Congaree National Park, which one is most likely to make physical contact with your body tonight? A female mosquito, locating you by the carbon dioxide you exhale, the heat off your skin, and the chemistry of your sweat. Not once. Repeatedly, across a single evening, from a population you cannot count. Individually, the consequence is small. Inflammation. A reaction that fades. Occasionally something sharper for a person whose immune response runs hot. What darkness changes is not their ability to find you. They were never using their eyes for that. It is your ability to find them. A hand cannot swat what it cannot see, and the light on your head gathers them into the exact column of air you are breathing. Number 5 is the contact you stop counting. The midpoint belongs to contact measured in dozens. Number 4 needs only one mistake. Number 4, Copperhead. There is a strip of ground in Congaree where floodwater ends and dry leaf litter begins, and it does not stay put. In a wet season, it climbs toward the trail and presses against the boardwalk pilings. In a dry one, it withdraws toward the sloughs. Wherever it sits in a given week, it is an unbroken field of brown, curled, overlapping leaf shapes. The Copperhead is confirmed inside Congaree, and it is built for that surface with something close to precision. Look at what the pattern does. The bands are wide along the flanks and pinched narrow across the spine. So the animal is not blended into the leaves so much as cut into separate pieces of leaf. No continuous outline is left for the eye to catch, and the human visual system finds animals by outline first. Now add the behavior, because this is where biology runs against instinct. The snake's first response to an approaching person is to hold still. Stillness is what the pattern is for. It does not clear the trail margin, it does not signal, and it does not treat your arrival as an emergency. It stays inside a strategy that has worked on every large animal that ever walked past it, and that strategy holds right up until a boot comes down, or a hand goes onto a log for balance, or a dog closes the last few feet at speed. What follows is a defensive response to compression, and it is a medical emergency. Pain out of proportion to the size of the animal, swelling that moves, tissue effects, and an evaluation in a hospital that is nowhere near the backcountry of a floodplain. Number 4 is the animal that is not concealing itself from you. You are simply not equipped to see it. The copperhead disappears by matching the ground. Number 3 can stay in plain view and still be misread. Number 3, timber rattlesnake. Almost everyone carries a rule about rattlesnakes into the woods without ever deciding to adopt it. The warning comes first sound, then decision, then retreat, in that order, like a system with a mechanical trigger. The timber rattlesnake is confirmed inside Congaree, on the drier ridges and upland margins where the floodplain gives way to firmer ground. It is a large pit viper, heavy-bodied, patterned for bark and woody debris. The rule is not a rule. It is a behavior, and behaviors are chosen. Consider what rattling costs the animal. It surrenders a position that camouflage had been protecting successfully and announces that position to everything within earshot, including whatever the snake is actually worried about. A rattlesnake that has already concluded its best option is to go unnoticed has no reason to advertise. One that has been stepped over or startled at close range may have no opportunity to. The rattle is a decision made under conditions you cannot observe, on a timeline you do not control. On the other side of that decision sits the most consequential venom delivery in this park's inventory. A large viper means longer fangs and greater potential volume, and the effects can extend past local tissue damage into circulation and systemic function. Here, distance from a hospital stops being logistics and becomes part of the injury. Congaree has no verified bite case on record. That is a statement about record keeping in a park with a large backcountry. It is not a statement about capability. Number 3 is the warning you were counting on, turned optional. Number 3 may withhold its warning. Number 2 shows one that people routinely misread. Number 2, cottonmouth. The eastern cottonmouth is listed as common in this park's own species inventory. Common, of every venomous animal in this countdown, it is the one whose habitat lines up most exactly with what Congaree is: slow edges, flooded forest, root masses, and the low limbs along the boundary between creek bank and black water. It is not visiting this landscape. It is a component of it. It is also the most misunderstood animal in the park, and the misunderstanding runs in the specific direction that gets people hurt. The open white mouth is the most photographed threat display in the American South, and nearly everyone reads it as intent as a declaration that something is about to happen to them. It is the opposite. It is a demand for distance from an animal that would strongly prefer not to spend venom on something it has no ability to eat. Venom is expensive, and it is meant for food. The display is the snake using its last cheap option before the only remaining one is the bite. So watch what a person does with that in the field. They stop. They raise a phone. They step in half a pace to be certain of what they are looking at because the banded water snake shares the same bank, the same posture, and the same heavy silhouette, and because being sure feels responsible rather than reckless. The identification problem is real. The response to it is what fails. Now apply the setting to that half pace. The bank is uneven, frequently undercut, and it gives way. The vegetation sits at ankle height, which is where your legs are and where the snake already is. The strike is short range and low, and it completes inside the exact interval a person would need to reconsider and step back. The mouth is not an invitation to look closer. It is evidence that the distance is already gone. Number 2 is the warning people answer by walking toward it. The cottonmouth controls a few feet of creek bank. Number 1 changed who was allowed into entire sections of this park after dark. Number 1, feral hog. In 2023, Congaree National Park said something about its wildlife that it has never said about its snakes. It reported that feral hogs inside the park were becoming habituated to people, approaching visitors, moving through heavily used ground near the visitor center and along the boardwalk corridor, and no longer responding as expected to hazing, the practice of using noise and pressure to teach an animal that humans are worth avoiding, not attacking, not stalking, simply declining to leave. The response to that was not a warning sign at a trailhead. Congaree has closed trails, campgrounds, and backcountry access so that National Park Service and USTA Wildlife Services personnel could work inside the floodplain after the public was out of it. Controlled access, interagency teams, firearms, restricted movement, on ground that ordinary visitors walk in daylight without a second thought. The gate at the beginning of this video is that decision made visible. It is not folklore about a swamp at night. It is an access boundary resting on a management record. The animal itself is invasive here, thoroughly established, and mechanically ordinary in a way that is easy to underestimate right up until it matters. Compact mass carried low, stable through a turn. Real acceleration across the first few yards, which is the only distance that ever counts. And tusks that convert a short defensive rush into puncture and laceration injuries rather than bruises. USTA is clear that attacks by feral swine are uncommon, and equally clear about what those rare events can produce. And here is the honest part of this entry, which does more work than any of the drama would. Most Congaree hogs still run. The overwhelming majority of encounters end with an animal leaving the way animals are expected to leave, and the park has said so directly. What changed is that some of them stopped in the exact places where people walk. A habituated animal is not an angry animal. It is one that has stopped consulting you about distance, and distance was the only thing keeping the arrangement safe. There is no verified attack on a visitor inside this park. There is a documented decision to remove humans from the forest before professionals entered it. Number 1 is the only creature here whose behavior rewrote the schedule of the park itself. Go back to the gate. Nothing about it says the forest changed at sunset. Every animal in this countdown is doing the same things at 2 in the afternoon that it does at 2 in the morning. The copperhead on the leaf line, the ticks questing on the same vegetation, the hogs working the oak and hickory ground. What the gate marks is a change in what people are able to know, and in who is equipped to operate beyond it. A headlamp is a moving border of usable information, and it is narrow. Congaree's real variable was never the size of the animal. It is the interval between detection and contact, and this park is unusually good at shortening it. The alligator visitors scan the creek gives you the most of that interval: a whole body, a waterline, a direction. A tick removes the moment of recognition. A copperhead removes the outline. A cottonmouth compresses the shoreline to a single step. A hog removes the assumption that an animal will give ground simply because you are standing there. None of that makes this place unsafe. Repellent, a body check, a light, a map, water, and distance are not fear. They are a proportionate answer to how little time some encounters allow. The gate stays locked until morning. On the other side of it, freshly rooted soil crosses the edge of the beam and continues into the dark, and there is no one left on that trail to notice.